Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Covenant Calendar. We're looking at an interesting topic this morning. When did time begin at creation? We're told that it's possible it started on the fourth cycle of the week because we're told that the sun, the moon, the stars were created then. Is that true? Was the sun non-existent until the fourth cycle of the week? Well, let's have a look. Let's go. So here we see a picture, and that is the Takufa circuit. You see it going round counterclockwise. At the bottom is the autumn teshuva, or the equinox, and at the top is where it completes its 360-degree circuit. And there's a pi sign there. Why is that pi sign there? Because the symbol pi, it helps us to understand eternity. Pi has an eternal number. It does not stop. It goes on and on and on and on. Was this earth created with an eternity quotient built into it? What I'm asking, was this earth created in a circle with 360 degrees, or is it short of 360 degrees? Yahuwah created this earth to fit into his eternity. If this earth was shy 360 degrees, and if the Takufa circuit was shy of 360 degrees, then it would not fit the eternal quotient that Yahuwah requires for his eternity. Keep that in mind. We have to look at this 360 degrees in a very serious manner. So we're going to be looking at the year. The term there, the Hebrew term is Shaneh. And I would like to suggest to you that this term Shaneh is one of the most important cornerstones of calendar. When you understand this word Shaneh very deeply, you will understand that this word can be used to understand eternity, nothing short of it. So the question is, when did the first year commence? Was the first day of creation? Was that the first day, the first week, the first month, the first year of Adam's years? Or did it wait until the fourth cycle of creation for him to begin his Shaneh? There's that pi symbol. And I'm asking you, can Shaneh with less than 360 degrees, can that be acceptable to Yahuwah? And that would insinuate that 360 degrees, if there's less than 360, that it cannot fit into eternity. That's something we have to wrestle with. Cycle number one, Yom Echad. Is it the beginning of time? We read there in Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5. Is it possible that Earth's time began sometime after the first cycle of creation? Maybe. Maybe that what we've been taught, that first, maybe that's just a misnomer. Maybe it's not really correct. Maybe there's something before first. What might this day one pertain to? Could Yom Echad, could that be day one in the first year of Adam's life? We're going to be looking at this diagram of 360 degrees, looking at it fairly closely. Now, I have been asked, how come it starts at 0? Why doesn't it start at 1? This is what we're going to be looking at for a little bit here. Why does this circle register 0 to 360? Why does it not start with number 1? From what focal point does Yahuwah start the count to number 1? If we remember 9/11, that area there was ground zero. It was not spread over a bunch of blocks, over 20, 30 blocks. It was in one specific focal point. It was called ground zero. So if we look at this chart, I want you to take that concept and think about this. At the very beginning, it's ground zero. Consider the zero mark. And I ask you, when you're looking at the zero mark, has 24 hours already been completed? Understanding how to count first cycle before it is complete. This is the 0 degree mark, the point of conception for the first cycle of creation. You'll see over here, there's a blue line right here in this pointer. This is the 0 point. Here we have the first light season. It is roughly 12 hours. I say roughly. And that is the light season. This is the half-degree mark for the Tekufa. It is the first half cycle of creation. Yahuwah had not yet declared it Yom Echad. Why? It was not yet complete. It was not yet complete. Now, this statement here, you need to understand, is very, very important when you come to understanding the life of Yahusha and the correct day and date and year of his crucifixion. Time frames need to be given their complete space of time to be completed before they can be titled or named. So here, only 12 hours had passed by, only the light season had been accomplished, but Yahuwah had not yet declared it Yom Echad. It was not yet complete. Learning the cycle and degree relationship for Tekufa. And a repeat here. This is the 0 degree mark, the point of conception for the first cycle of creation. Here goes the 12 hours of light, and with it we see the light season, same as the first slide. But now we have darkness. That goes by, and it's roughly 12 hours of darkness that passed us by. Genesis 1:5, section E. And there came to be Boker. That's the dawn morning light. It was at this point of 1 full degree that Yahuwah declared Yom Echad. It was not one cycle complete until dawn's light was seen. Only when that first light come to fruition could Yahuwah say Yom Echad, a complete unit. So you see here creation's first cycle of 24 hours, and this equates to 1 degree of Tekufa, teaching us to number our days and degrees. Very, very important. We can't just look at the days or just look at the degrees. We need to look at them both. Different entities for different reasons, and ultra, ultra important. One cannot be counted here as it is not yet complete. This is actually ground zero, if I can describe it like that. Here we see 0 to 1/2 degree. 1/2 degree of what? 1/2 degree of 360 on the Tekufa circuit. Is that true? Wait and see. We'll see. This area here, where you see the green arrow, this area is into day 1, but it is not day 1 proper. Not yet. It is not complete. The green arrow underneath of it, from the left side to the right side, is the ground zero to 1 full degree. That is a complete degree. Light season and night season. That's one day, I guess, if I can call it that. One cycle is what I prefer because it's 24 hours. The first cycle of the year's point of 0 commencement. You'll see it over here with the bright 0 here. I hope I've emphasized that enough. There's your green arrow going over to the full 24-hour spectrum. Time starts at 0, and only when the full 24-hour timeline is complete Can this be considered one full day? Upon the inception of dawn of the second cycle, Yahuwah named the first completed cycle Yom Echad. The first cycle started at 0 seconds. The zero start should now be clear. I hope. Might have to see it again, but it should be clear. And here's a very base thought. I'm trying to keep it simple because that's how I can understand it. To achieve proper comprehension in terms for an area of a circle, two elements must exist. There must be a 360-degree complete circle format. Note, complete. If it's not complete, then it's less than 360 degrees. The formula of pi, that's what we see on the middle of this circle here. The formula of pi must be utilized in the calculation to understand the area of a circle. What is pi? 22 over 7 or 3.14. You do the mathematics here. Computers have taken this icon here, the 22 over 7, divided it, and have gone into the trillions of decimal points. Trillions. It does not stop. Not that we know of. So why is pi, the symbol of eternity, shown with a 360-degree completed circle? Did Yahuwah have this concept in mind when he forged out the circle of the earth? That's what it writes, or that's what it says in Isaiah 40, verse 2. So Yahuwah was sitting up there, and he had this eternity where he existed, and he saw a space where he could put a kingdom. But he needed to have an earth. Is it possible that he could create an earth that did not have a pattern that would fit into eternity and then put it into eternity? Would it be compatible if it did not accept his eternal quotient pattern? No, it would not. This earth was designed in a 360-degree circle specifically so that this pi understanding of eternity would fit into his eternity. He does not put a wrong puzzle piece where it doesn't belong. 360 degrees. You're going to see that emphasized quite a bit. Well, what's that little purple pie shape that comes in there? We're going to be seeing more of that purple pie. Shall we believe the scripture with Isaiah's circle of the earth? What if a portion of the 360 degrees was missing? You see that pie shape? That's why it's in there. That's representing a space that does not belong. Can we say maybe it's a vacuum? It's missing? Would the infinite quotient of pi, could it still be contained in the first Shanae if there was a vacuum, a point where there was nothing? How could Yahuwah purposely establish earth into his eternity at creation if earth but revealed a deficiency which disqualified it for this incredible position? So the question is, did time start in or after the first cycle? What's your thoughts? What have you been taught? This pi shape represents either 1 degree, that would be suiting our initial question, or we can extend it to symbolizing the 3 degrees, which equates to 3 cycles or days, that the Zadok and the 364-day calendar discounts at creation week. Why do I say discounts? Because the 364-day calendars teach, I don't know if they believe it or not, but they teach that time does not start until the 4th cycle of creation. Why? Because they claim that the sun, the moon, and the stars were created on the 4th cycle of the week. Yet, when you look in those verses Genesis 1, verses 14 to 18, you cannot find the word bara. There is nothing that was created in days 2, 3, and 4. So how is it that we're told that the sun and the moon and the stars were created on cycle number 4 of creation? So I ask you, what happened on cycle number 1? Is there something on cycle number 1 that tells us the sun was already created in verse 1? Exactly like it says. Yahuwah created the Shemayim. It says that in verse 1. So if he created the Shemayim in verse 1, and it didn't have the sun, the moon, and the stars, what did he create? Think about that. Think about that carefully. Did he create nothing? No. With this pi discount, and I'm referencing the missing accountability of the Dead Sea Scroll calendars, there is no longer 360 degrees in the Takufa circuit, but only 359 degrees or 357, depending upon the calendar calculation avenue taken. Was this imperfection acceptable as the Earth's seed leading into eternity? Did accountable time, as in the Takufa circuit of the sun, did that start on cycle number 1, Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5, or not? We will continue with this pi concept. There's that 360 degrees again. Am I emphasizing it? Absolutely. It's imperative. It's a cornerstone. Is this suggesting, this pi here, which I described as maybe being a vacuum, is this suggesting that the Earth was created with a missing portion, a vacuum possibly? No, most certainly not, not even remotely close. So why then this visual? Ecclesiastes 1:5. Note, that's a different purple triangle. It's an arrow this time. It's pointing to the 0 degree mark. Why the 0 degree mark? Let's read Ecclesiastes 1, verse 5. The sun also rises and the sun sets and hurries back where? To the place where it arose. Can I say ground zero? Can I say it like that? Genesis 1, verse 14. And Elohim said, let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens. To do what? To separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and appointed times, and for days, and for years. Shanaim, for years. Very, very importantly, signs for years. Let's get some context going here. Yahuwah issued forth his parameters, commissioned for the sun in Genesis 1, verse 14, that it must return to the original point of departure. That's what we read in Ecclesiastes 1:5. Point of departure, returning back to point of departure. And remember, it was in a hurry to get back to the point of departure. But why this original point of departure? Why is this emphasized? If the sun does not return to the original point of departure, the shadow of Teshuvah cannot delineate the final cycle of 360 degrees. It will be shy of the 360 degrees. It will be shy of the Teshuvah, and there will not be a shadow. So how do you determine time? If you're wondering about this, I advise you to see the study Moshe's Wisdom, where he raised the tabernacle on the first cycle of the second year in the wilderness. You read about that in Exodus 40, verses 2 and 17. The accuracy that is seen in this study is absolutely astounding, and I recommend it. You need to understand this. Going forward, we must keep in mind Yahuwah's DNA seeding process of Genesis 11 and 12. What is this DNA seeding process? We read in those verses, seed within a seed according to its kind. This is repeated twice. This is the structure of tzadikah, or righteousness, established upon earth, at the word bereshit, Genesis 1:1. This is the sheet garment that enveloped this earth as it was spoken. It is a seed within a seed duplicating format, duplicated within itself. This seeding process is the fundamental base upon which Shanae can inherently duplicate itself, revealing no imperfections in the procedure. No imperfections means it's not short any degrees of 360. It must complete itself to be able to duplicate and be Shanae. Next in this investigation is Psalms 19, and this is from Brenton's English Septuagint. Psalms 19, verse 6. His going forth is from the extremity of heaven, speaking of the sun, and his circuit, there's the word tekufa. It has a circuit. His circuit is to the end of heaven, and no one shall be hidden from his heat. This is important. No one shall be hidden from his heat. If there was a section, a vacuum degree, if I can say that, an incomplete portion of a circle which this sun did not complete, there would be a place where the plan of salvation would not be given to this earth. That's not acceptable, not to Yahuwah. More context. As recorded, the sun will impose its heat, and spiritually, this is the plan of salvation realized through the Matzerot upon every square millimeter of this earth. This was Yahuwah's commission applied to the sun in Genesis 1, verse 14. And the purpose to exist applied is written right here. And let them be for. This is where we understand the commissioning. Let them be for, and then we read further in the verse, the instructions of what they are entitled to do, their commission of what these lights should do through eternity. Was the sun exempt from this commission upon the first Shanae? Could the first Shanae, could it fulfill only 359 degrees? Would that be complete? Or in like manner, could the first Shanae fulfill only 357 degrees? And this is referencing the 364-day calendar, the 3-cycle creation delete. What do I mean by creation delete? This is when the Dead Sea Scroll calendars do not count the first 3 days of creation week. They say time did not begin until the 4th cycle of the week. So the first 3 days do not count for anything. We're going to touch on that later on. In reference to the Tekufa, could 3 degrees short of a completed circle, could that still provide complete earthly coverage and remain in full compliance with Yahuwah's commission? Another question. Could 357 degrees, which is 3 degrees short of a completed circuit, could that equate to a disqualification for entering into the eternal factor Yahuwah designed? What if it cannot support the pi eternal factor? How can it then exist in Yahuwah's eternity? Did you know that 357 degrees does not support pi? Pi symbolizes eternity. Would any of these factors have an impact on Adam's life? There's that blue line. The shadow, symbolized by that blue line, the shadow on Teshuvah occurred in Zion on the cycle prior to the 0 mark. The Teshuvah completed Zion's 360th cycle in Zion. Do you remember that Moshe was commanded to build the tabernacle according to the pattern in Zion? That pattern in Zion also had a Teshuvah because the pattern was duplicated. Yahuwah does not devoid or go aside from his patterns. It's repeated, it's duplicated. That is seen in the seed within a seed according to its kind structure. Therefore, we understand that for Moshe to be in complete compliance with timing with the tabernacle in Zion, it must be identical on this earth. So when the first day of creation took place, on the first week of the first month of the first Shana, the day of Teshuvah occurred in Zion before this earth was created. And can I suggest to you that the next day, if you will, is the day of Bereshit, the Genesis 1:1, when this earth was created. That was the beginning, the 0 degree mark of 360 degrees. The New Year cycle for Earth's seeding, it is seen in the beginning, where Yahuwah created the Shemayim. That's the 0 point. That's the very beginning of time. How do we know that? Did he give us proof? Did he show us? Psalms 19, verse 4. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them, what's them? Well, if you understand or if you read Psalms 19, the context is the Matzerot. In them, the Matzerot, he set up a tent for the sun. A tent. Well, that's an interesting word. And what is them? It's the Matzerot. This tent or this dwelling place for the sun was established in the Matzerot. What? You're telling me that the sun existed in Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5? I was told by the Dead Sea Scrolls that the sun was created on cycle number 4. How can we say here that it existed in Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5? Is there something written in these verses that gives us that information? Genesis 1, verse 5, section D. And there came to be Irrev. What's Irrev? It's the twilight mixture. It's the mixture of darkness mixing with the light. Darkness cannot mix with direct sunlight. Darkness can only mix with soft light or indirect sun rays. The sun has to be out of sight, out of vision, providing only soft sunlight, if you can say it that way, so that the darkness can mix with it. And here in Genesis 1, verse 5, section D, it says, there came to be this twilight mixture. So what do we understand here? The light of the sun existed first, allowing the transformation of the atmospheric status from pure light into a mixture. A mixture. Well, how do we know the sun existed first? Because in a mixture, you have to have at least two elements. If you do not have two elements that mix together, you don't have a mixture. Yet here we're told there's an Erev mixture. What two elements existed? For the darkness to overtake and mix with, light had to be first. Where did that light come from? How do we know? How do we understand? Darkness cannot rule over the direct sunlight. Have you seen darkness arrive before sunset? Are you saying, are you saying that the orb of the sun had to move into its next position in order to exchange direct sunlight for indirect sunlight or soft light? And if that sun moved, did it have a Kodesh itinerary assigned by the Creator Yahusha HaMashiach? Has that been assigned? So just so we understand the words, and you know that I'm taking this from the interlinear scripture Hebrew, I gave you this slide here. It says he set up a tent for the sun. So we come here to this word in English, it's tent. The word is ahel, tent. And this is at the 0 degree mark where it is begun. And here we see in the English a tent. So you understand where I'm coming from. Now I ask you another question. Does the base configuration of a tent, does it reveal a center pole? Yes, I know there's all kinds of different designs of tents, but maybe we should look in the Hebrew. Shall we inquire about this tent in the Shemayim? This is an English or Hebrew and English lexicon by J. Parkhurst. This is page 77. This is from 1762. It's quite an old lexicon. I absolutely love this lexicon. So let's look here what it says. Ahel, here's the word, to pitch or spread a tent. Coming down here to the red underline, the tent or tabernacle consecrated to divine worship and called Ahel Moed, tabernacle of meeting. That's pretty clear. Now I underline for you in yellow something that I found just pretty interesting. This is just a little bit of a side note for us today. Noah was uncovered or rolled himself in the midst of not his, but the tent, i.e., of the tent or tabernacle, go up to the right, consecrated to Yahuwah's worship, whither after drinking the wine, he had retired in expectation of a prophetic dream, which it appears he had, and therefore he was not drunk. For doth Yahuwah inspire drunkards in their very state of drunkenness? I found this an extremely interesting thought that we need to carry further in other studies. That's why I underlined it here. But let's move down to the next one here. And it is plain from Exodus 33, 7 to 9, that the Israelites had a sacred tabernacle before that, erected by Moshe. And yes, that speaks about a tent that he had raised up himself for worship purposes. Dropping down to the next yellow underline, Moshe in the tabernacle, just mentioned, distinguishes first Mishkan, the dwelling. What is that? It's the 10 inner and more elegant curtains which were hung over the boards. And secondly, here's the word we're looking at again, ahel. The ahel. It's the 10 other curtains made of goat's hair, which were put over the former. Do you find this interesting? This ahel was a covering. It was put over the former, a covering. Keep that under your hat. An ahel covering. I ask you, is Matzerot ahel, the plan of salvation? Is that a covering? Is that a spiritual covering? Or is it just a physical covering for this earth? Maybe it's both. Continuing with this word, ahel. Because those ancients who dwell in tents usually abode a considerable time where they encamped, hence ahel is used for any settled habitation or dwelling place. Keep that in mind. A habitation or a dwelling place. This is what was given to the sun in the Matzerot, a dwelling place where it should stay. Dropping down to the fuchsia colored box, same word, ahel. It is spoken of the Yirah or lunar light. Job 25, verse 5. Behold, even to the light of the moon, and he, Yahuwah, please note this. Please note this very, very, very carefully. He, Yahuwah, speaking on the light of the moon, hath not fixed its tent. Hath not fixed its tent. There is huge variables here. But what about the sun? Let's continue. It is said of the Shemesh, the solar light, going up to the top here, Psalms 14, verse 5, in them, in the heavens, can I specifically say in the Matzerot, hath he set the Shemesh for the solar light, ahel. He set a tent or tabernacle, namely the orb or body of the sun. Now I really want you to pay attention. I want you to focus on this very, very hard. Fixed, okay, this is a tabernacle for the dwelling place for this tent or Well, the dwelling place for the sun, fixed like a tabernacle, where? In the center. Why is this important? Why is this center so important? Didn't we talk about the center pole of a tent? Just keep that under your hat. Fixed like a tabernacle in the center, from whence the light is on all sides perpetually springing forth. It comes out of the center. Who lives in the center? I'm going to touch on that. What does it do? This light that comes forth from the center, enlightening and enlivening the universe. Enlivening. That's a really interesting word. That means there's life itself coming out of this tent. Continuing on. But as for the lunar light, that has no fixed tabernacle, but the orb which reflects it. And I'm just going to leave it there. I just thought that would be kind of interesting. No fixed tabernacle for the lunar system. It has light there, but he says it reflects it. Remember that. Fixed like a tabernacle in the center? Isn't that where the adversary, being Satan, declared that he was going to be found? In the Tsephon, the sides of the north? Isn't that what we read about in Isaiah 14, verse 13, where he declared he was going to control the Moedim of Yahuwah? Would he do that from the Tsephon, the center of the tent? Just a thought. Continuing on with this light about or this reflection of light from the moon. From this complex motion, why complex? Because it's not fixed. From this complex motion is to the inhabitants of the earth sometimes luminous, sometimes partly dark, and sometimes totally so. This this definition right here eliminates the moon from any portion in Genesis 1, verses 16 and 17. It eliminates it right here. It's very interesting when you study that out. So the question I have now, do we have time for a visual of these last few thoughts? I hope so. Here we see what I understand depicted from creation of this earth right out of Genesis 1. On the right, you're going to see the box here. It has green. So the green surface here is described in Genesis 1 with the letters Kuf Vav, root. It's the root words used to describe the formation of this earth. And then it's got those same root words, or same root word that describes the laver lip, that laver where the priests washed themselves when they went into the tabernacle. Kuf Vav, stretched out like a line, stretched out like yarn, stamped out flat like a plate. This is the definitions of the Kuf Vav root. Hence, you will see this green portion here is describing the top portion of this earth that we live in. The bottom here are the four pillars of the earth. We read about that in Scripture, the four pillars of the earth. And the black, well, the black is the abyss. The circular ahel, what we were just looking at in the definitions, the circular ahel within which the Shemesh was assigned to dwell. This circular ahel also has the kuf vav root words to describe it, stretched out in a straight line like a measuring tape. This is also describing the Tekufa's solar plane in the Archaea. This is the atmosphere. Notice the kuf vav roots in here, stretched out straight in a straight line. Now I want you to see this blue line in the center. We just read about the center pole from this tent, this ahel, that the Mazzaroth is controlled from. That center pole is the north. It's what it's translated to in the scripture. Satan declared that he was going to be in the recesses of the north. The north, that is the Hebrew word tsephon. Satan said he is going to be in this area of control for the plan of salvation. Think about that. How did he do that? Well, we're going to continue here. Here we see the purple lines that spread out in a straight line, stretched out like yarn. Those are the definitions. That's the Mazzaroth 12 constellations, which contain the plan of salvation covering the green of the earth, unto the ends of the earth. Every portion of this earth is covered by the plan of salvation. Now you're going to see is nothing concealed from this. The plan of salvation seen in the purple lines of the Mazzaroth is brought down to the earth, reflected onto this earth, and all portion of it. This is a perfect 360-degree completed circuit in the skies. This is the archaea, the atmosphere above us. So here we see the sun doing its 360-degree circuit. Did you note the orange circle below it? I'm going to back it up. We're going to do it one more time. The sun is going to come up and it's going to do a 360-degree circuit. And just as a side note, note the sun is doing counterclockwise. Just a side note here. That's the proper rotation. Underneath of it, that circuit in the sky is reflected onto the earth, a completed 360-degree circuit. Why completed 360 degrees? Because it must fit into eternity. If it's not 360 degrees, it does not have the eternal quotient required by Yahuwah. And I ask you, did you observe Ecclesiastes 1 verse 5, where it says that the sun is hurrying back to the place where it arose? Did you notice that? I'm going to back it up because I want you to see that again. Here we go. Here comes the sun, and it is hurrying back to the place where it arose. When you look at the word tekoa, which is one letter short of tekufa, the word tekufa has an anticipation definition. What is there in the tekoa that is anticipating for us, or that we should be anticipating? When you add the pay letter and it says tekufa, that sun is hurrying back to the place where it arose because it is anticipating, marking out the day of Teshuvah, the final 360th day of the year, upon which Moshe raised the tabernacle for the second year in the wilderness. Let me back up. I said that wrong. The 360th day of the year was marked out by the shadow of Teshuvah, so that the next day, on New Year's Day, Moshe had the perfect alignment foundation to align the Mishkan, the round circular tabernacle, so that it would be in perfect timing with the Mazzaroth in the sky. 360-degree completed circuit. So let's now consider the questions. Now that you've seen this, did time begin on the first cycle or not? We will also consider this question alongside the first one. Did time begin on cycle number 4 as Zadok and the 364 cycle calendars proclaim? Note here, the end results will be quite similar in context of this brief study. And also note this pi on the right-hand side, this pi-shaped wedge on the side. This symbolizes 1 degree of 360 within a completed circle. 1 cycle, or 1 day, is equal to 1 degree. I want you to look for this pi. Remember, we're talking the time back at creation, when there was 360 days for 360 degrees. 1 day equal to 1 degree. Now we're going to do some contemplating, and I hope you see those question marks with the emphasis around them. Why? Because we're questioning this. We're questioning. Time does not begin on Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5, the first cycle or degree of creation. Is that true? That's the statement that we are giving. Let's have a look at it. Again, there's the earth with the Kuf Vav description and the Archaea atmosphere in the air. There's the center pole and the Mazarot stretched out in a straight line. And the sun does its circuit around the atmosphere. But I want you to see the problem. Did you notice the black wedges? What's the problem there? The problem is those are not counted according to the Dead Sea Scrolls and others that claim that time did not start on the first cycle of creation. There's a void there in those black wedges. This is symbolizing the first degree and cycle of creation that is not recognized. There's a vacuum here. This false year is not Shanae and cannot duplicate itself. Yahuwah issued no command to replicate incomplete rogue years. Nothing there. Strike number one. There is now a void of the plan of salvation coverage unto the ends of the earth. Notice up here, this wedge on top. This is a vacuum. This is a void of the plan of salvation that has been projected down onto this earth. There is no plan of salvation in this area, according to this statement above. This incomplete year cannot qualify for duplication by default of failing to achieve Yahuwah's completed circle at 360 degrees. With only 359 degrees of circuit rotation ahead, the eternal pi factor has no value for this incompleted false Tekufa circuit. It's an impostor. It does not fit Yahuwah's eternal requirement. By default of being 1 degree short of 360, the eternal quotient of pi has zero connection to this rogue entity. Yahuwah placed this earth in his eternity. This 359-degree year simply cannot function in opposition to his eternity. The area inside this pink box that you just saw come in here, this area is going to be scripturally and physically magnified. So this is going to be expanded on the next slide. Here's that fuchsia box or pink box, whatever you want to call it, with the wedge inside of it. And here comes the Shemayim and the Matzorot, spread out in a straight line like the Kuf Vav written in Genesis 1. Psalms 19. Context is the Matzorot. Their line has gone out through all the earth. All the earth. Note that. And their words to the end of the world. In them he set up a tent for the sun. Here we have our Tekufa 360-degree circuit. Let's bring it together so we have a little more understanding, more clarity. Yom Echad. Note that wedge, that yellow wedge that went down. Yom Echad is the first day and first degree of 360 within the Tekufa. It's New Year Day. It's the point of departure, returning to point of departure as declared in Ecclesiastes 1 verse 5. I'm going to back this up because I want you to see point of departure to point of departure. I want you to see this visual. That sun departs and it goes completely 360 degrees and returns back to the exact same place where it left. New Year's Day is when this began. So we're going to look at a quick side note now. Shall we look at the life of Adam? Genesis 5, verse 3. And Adam lived 130 years. That word years is emphasized because it's Shane, a 360-degree completed circuit for Shane that duplicates. And begot a son after his form and after his image, and called his name Seth. Genesis 5:5. And all the days except one in creation of Adam. No, that's not what it says. It says all the days of Adam which he lived were 930 shane, or years, when he died. All the days. There is no exception. If 3 days of creation were not counted, how could this verse be written and still be true? So I want you to see here, this word year in this very verse is shane. All the days of Adam were in a shane year. The question now is, because Adam is recorded as living in shane, what year was Adam created if it was not the year of creation? When the Shemayim was created, the Tekufa, which is the circuit to lodge the sun, was created simultaneously. Genesis 1:1, Yahuwah created the Shemayim. This circuit format is revealed in Psalms 19, verse 4, in the tent, the Ahel. The Shemesh, which is the sun, was positioned to commence departure at the 0-degree mark. Remember, we discussed this point of departure to point of departure. Where did it start? It must depart at the 0, or from the 0-degree mark. So here we're looking at the Tekufa circuit, 360 degrees here. That yellow wedge comes down. That is symbolizing Yom Echad, 24 hours of Yom Echad. What does Scripture say? Teach us to number our days. Where would Yahuwah start from? Would he start into the week? What about the manna week? Did they start picking manna from the 4th cycle of the week? Teach us to number our days. What about that seed at creation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 cycles later, on the 6th cycle of the week, Adam was created. Adam lived 930 shane. Any year minus 1 or more days, simply by default, cannot qualify for shane. This was the first cycle of Adam's first shane. Are we allowed to delete these days, as in the first 3 cycles of creation not counting? Ask Adam. This was his first week of his first month of the first year. What colossal event concerning light unfolded next in context of time? Does Scripture provide a seed event that identifies the half-degree point within the Matzerot? Please watch. Watch what's coming. Is there a seed event that identifies the half-degree point within the Matzerot? Did you notice the sun moved out of position? It moved away from its locale so that there was no direct rays of sun, but soft light. And it allowed the darkness to mix with the light, causing an Erev twilight. I'm going to back this up. I want you to see this again, because Yahuwah, we read about the events, the catastrophic events that happened in Genesis 1, verses 2 and 3 and 4. And then we come to verse 5, and it says, and there came to be evening. This is a description of, and there came to be evening. This is what happened after the first 12 hours of creation. Here we go. Watch that sun. This is the first half degree point within the Matzerot. And there came to be evening. 12 hours had taken place, not 24. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Yahuwah created the Shemayim. Did he create the sun or not? If the sun moved out of its position and allowed darkness to mix with the sunlight, how come we're told that the sun was not created until cycle number 4? Where did that sun get its light? Nowhere in Scripture will you read anywhere that light was created. That does not exist in Scripture. Yahusha says, I am the light of the world. When he created in Genesis 1:1, he gave himself as the light of righteousness onto this earth. It was enveloped in the light of righteousness. Yahusha imparted his life-giving light onto the Shemesh. Here, Shemesh, you may now support life. That's why the sun can support life, because it's the light from Yahusha that he commissioned the light to reproduce. There is nowhere, again, I will repeat, there is nowhere in Scripture where you will read that light was created. And that is a solid statement. And I challenge anybody to prove that wrong. Continuing on, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Yahuwah created the Shemayim. So what took place? Yahushua HaMashiach imparted his light onto the Shemesh orb. He said in the Messianic Testament, I am the light of the world. Do you believe that? That's his words. I am the light of the world. When you read Genesis 1:1, you will see this very, very clearly in Bereshit. It's very, very clear. It's there. When this happened, immediately direct rays of sunlight illuminated the scape. The battle and subsequent cleansing events of Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5c occurred. We've read about that. We've studied that extensively. Then we read, and this is the first light season, remember, the first light season of creation. Then we read Genesis 1, verse 5, and there came to be Erev, came to be. This is a transitional state of being. Something had to exist first so that it could transform into a different state of existence. If it did not exist first, it could not transform. And there came to be Erev. What was there? To have an Erev mixture of light and darkness, light has to be first, because the darkness in the evening overtakes the light, and eventually the light disappears. So when we read here, and there came to be Erev, something was happening. What was it? Again, to accomplish an Erev mixture, light must exist first for the darkness to mix with and eventually replace that light. And there came to be Erev. Here we see the word, and I have trouble pronouncing this one, Yuehi. Yuehi. Translated into English, and he is becoming. It's a transformation. It is not a creation. It's a transitioning event only. What transition? And there came to be Erev. Look closely. The sun is traveling in its tent, in its dwelling place. When the sun moved out of its immediate locale and it removed the direct sunlight, it left behind soft light or indirect sunlight. At that time, the darkness was allowed to mix with the light. The Erev mixture came to be. Darkness, which is Leil, mixes with light, formulating the two-component mixture of twilight. I'm going to back this up so that we can see this again. And there came to be Erev. Watch that sun. It's going to move to a different position out of sight, and that allows the darkness to mix with the soft light, creating twilight. What would happen if that sun was not there? What would happen if that sun did not have light? Could there be a mixture? Is it possible that without the light there could be an Erev? So when we read, and there came to be Erev, we understand that when Yahuwah created the heavens, the Shemayim in verse 1, the sun was created there and it had light. If it didn't have light, this verse in verse 5, it could not say, and there came to be Erev. Now I want you to see where this sun is positioned, and I want you to notice this wedge below it. That wedge is the twilight. Excuse me. And it has the Tekufa 360-degree circuit within the Shemayim. Watch this sun very, very carefully. That's why the eyes are up there. Watch. Did you see it move? I'm going to back it up. Watch the sun move. Yeah, it's only a very little tiny itsy wee bit, but it does move. What just happened? I want you to note, the sun does not return to its original position daily, every morning. It takes up a different position every morning. It's very minute, but it is a different position. If it did, there would be no progress movement throughout the Matzerot. The sun every morning takes up an incrementally different position every morning. So in Ecclesiastes 1:5, when it says the sun it arises and hurries back to the place where it arose, that is a direct reference to the Tekufa circuit, point of departure to point of departure. So where did this sun move? When it moves to provide an opportunity for a twilight, within what did it move? It moves within the Tekufa circuit because that's the position that Yahuwah created for it to dwell in. You see it move there. What just happened? That movement tells us the first half degree of movement within the Tekufa circuit occurred. The Shemesh just moved the first half degree of 360 within the Tekufa circuit. There was now only 359.5 degrees remaining for the sun to accomplish until it did what? Return back to the place where it started, Ecclesiastes 1:5. This tells you that time began because the first portion of the Tekufa circuit took place on the first light season of creation. It's the first light season, the first day, the first week, the first month, and the first year of Adam's 930 Shaneh. And yet we're told this does not exist and there's no count. Again, we're going to look at this. Genesis 1 verse 5, and there came to be Erev. Came to be. The sun moved inside of the circuit, the Ahel, the dwelling place. And the Erev mixture came to be. Darkness was able to displace the light. It became a two-component mixture, which we call in English twilight. In Hebrew, Erev. And there came to be Erev, Genesis 1, verse 5. This confirms light, which is Or, and the Shemesh, which is sun, existed first as revealed in extreme clarity from Genesis 1:1, and brilliantly clear, the first Shane of this earth had commenced. Time began. Genesis 1:1. Now we come to an interesting part. If you choose to believe the Dead Sea Scrolls, Enoch, Zadok, and the Essene calendars, you must choose to disregard what you have just seen. They claim the sun was created on the fourth cycle, and time did not begin until that point. Yet, they claim to recognize the Tekufa. I'm not sure how that works. I want you to notice the dark color. Dead Scroll days, darkness. This is spiritual darkness. Dead Scroll days. I put that there on purpose. Zadok and the 364-day calendars claim time did not start until the fourth cycle of creation. Their reasoning claims the sun, moon, and stars were not created until the fourth cycle of creation. You cannot support that from Scripture. It does not exist. They have not read Genesis 1 carefully because there was no creating performed on cycles 2, 3, or 4. The Hebrew word bara, which is to create out of that which did not exist, it is absent in these three creation cycles, 2, 3, and 4. So in Scripture, there is no creating done on cycle number 4. Yet, when you go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, it claims there was creating done of the sun, moon, and stars. So you have a decision. Which do you believe? Two stark differences. Very, very different. It's an option. At 357 degrees of Tekufa rotation, and that's referencing the three wedges that you see in the middle, top and bottom, three wedges of vacuum in the atmosphere and three wedges of vacuum of the plan of salvation on this earth. That relates to the affinity of 360 degrees for an eternal connection which cannot be realized. These three wedges of darkness here that you see, there is no plan of salvation on this earth. Down here below, reflected below, it does not exist according to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Because this void of salvation coverage unto the ends of the earth, and the first degree of the Tekufa circuit not being counted, Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5, is no longer a consideration for this earth. Carrying this concept forward, Yahusha then had no eternal plan developed for this earth and the creation of the Aleph Tav, which is the end from the beginning in the first verse, is a non-entity. Yahusha had no plan to offer himself for a sacrifice as realized by the Hebrew words in Genesis 1, verse 1. Yes, when you study those words in Hebrew, Genesis 1:1, you will understand that Yahusha already had a plan for himself to be sacrificed as he spoke the words into fruition. I believe that plan was even before Genesis 1:1 because it was planned before this earth was created. But yet, if you understand this 3-day delete, that doesn't exist because Genesis 1:1 doesn't exist according to them. Also, with that, the flood with Noah, revealing the eradication of evil, had no seed type as understood from verses 2 to 4. Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5, the creation cycle enigma for the first 1,000 years simply cannot be connected to this earth if you accept these three triangle vacuum of darkness. Also, Yom Echad, which is day 1, which authorizes and delineates Earth's 7 by 1,000 year timelines, has no recognition. Yom Echad, which by the unique three-component format of cycle number 1 identifies Yahuwah and Yahusha as the ultimate authority through Mashiach, this has no bearing nor connection to this earth in this three-wedge understanding, this vacuum. And because this first cycle is eliminated from any bearing on this earth, everything after this cycle will be but happenstance. It must follow the format of the Big Bang Theory, spontaneous combustion out of a vacuum. Shall we look at your life? Maybe you do not exist either, and are but a figment of imagination that just happened to burst. There are people that believe we are just an imaginary dream, not a reality. Perhaps based on time not starting on the first cycle of creation, maybe they're correct. Shall we look at the life of Adam? Was Adam created in creation week or not? As the first cycle is not counted for Earth's time, by default, the following year has only 359 degrees and cannot duplicate in picture-perfect replication for Adam's 930. Think on that. It cannot be a Shanae under Yahuwah's standards. Recall that the sun returns back to the place where it arose. If the first cycle or the first 3 cycles of creation are not counted, there's a severe vacuum. If the sun returns back to 359 degrees all the time, every time, to duplicate itself, then every year accounted for in the scripture never existed. It cannot duplicate, it cannot duplicate in a 360-degree eternal Shanae format. If it has 359 degrees, it does not fit the requirements according to Yahuwah. The covenant given to Abraham shows by exact mathematical precision a meticulous fulfilling of the 430-year prophecy, also strict 360 cycle and degree years, pinpointing the exact cycle when Moshe physically exited Mitzrayim on Abib 15. Take that into consideration. The first year had to be 360 degrees of Shanae for this prophecy to be fulfilled perfectly. But that's not all. Hosea 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. It's important to understand this. Consider this. From Passover, Mitzrayim, starting in the Exodus, counting 360 cycles and degrees per year for 42 years, this will pinpoint with absolute precision Joshua's Passover in Canaan when? On the 7th day Shabbat, exactly as recorded in the book of Yehoshua. Exactly. The precision is absolutely outstanding. Now, just as a little side note here, you see I have the U underlined in Joshua. Why? Because that phonic sound represents a vav, which does not exist in the word. There is no U sound for Joshua. It's actually Yahosha. And that goes a long ways when you actually begin to think about it. Moving forward, Scripture records Adam as living 930 Shanae. Does that mean Adam was not created in the creation week by reason of the first year that had only 359 days and degrees? If the creation week had only 6 cycles, not counting the first cycle, from where arrived the manna seed to test the Hebrew nation? Being unseeded, maybe that was a false 6-day test also? Where did Yahuwah get that pattern for the manna week if it wasn't from the creation week? Remember Genesis 11 or Genesis 1 verses 11 and 12. Seed within a seed according to its kind. Everything must be found in a seeded pattern. So where did that manna test come from? Ask that to the Zadok calendar people. If Adam was not created in the first week of 7 cycles, being the first week of the first month of the first Shanae, to what end would this thought lead? It's kind of like a snowball going down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger, doesn't end until it bursts apart when it hits a tree. This is the beginning. Some of you might be surprised at that. Some might claim this is the end. I think that it seems to me this is the beginning of better understanding towards observing Yahuwah's Moedim calendar within the Melchizedek covenant. I hope this has helped everybody to understand what exactly took place on the first cycle of creation and what started the first degree of the Tekufa circuit. This is the end. Thank you for joining us. Please send your inquiries to questions@studythecalendar.com. I would like to comment on this picture. This is a very rare picture that I will use. Why? Because there's no face on this picture, and I appreciate that. We do not know what he looked like. That is the only reason why this picture is here. So again, thank you for your time on this Shabbat. I hope it's been a blessing to you. And this is the end. Shalom.